It all starts with a gigantic tree that took root in this country. Its name was Yggdrasil. It quickly grew and covered the entire world. Along with it, countless worlds appeared that seemed to be based on games. One of them was called Labyrinth, and people knew it as the game of the gods. The problem is that not everyone could become one of those players. In what looks like a construction mine, people are finishing their shift. Among them, there's a guy there with an orange jacket taking off his helmet, when suddenly someone comes from behind and tells 7017 that he did a good job today. He's got some good stuff to trade and asks if he wants to buy it for very little. There was a data card, and he's sure it's one of the good ones. But in the middle of the old man's explanation, the kid just runs off. The old guy keeps thinking that this bastard thinks too much of himself, but he's just like everyone else in that place. A useless piece of trash abandoned by everyone, just like all those who are there. Beneath the splendor of all the riches that Yggdrasil brought, obviously there are the broken and bankrupt folks. And in the middle of all that, there was a slot machine shop. The protagonist grabs the doorknob and already hears people inside shouting or demanding their points back. He walks up to one of the machines while everyone is yelling, wanting to bet one more time and saying that this time they'll change their life. As he sits in the chair, he welcomes the place where everything can change. The good old random box. Legalized betting for those who want to chase fortune. And there goes the protagonist trying once again to change his life. The rare item available today was a permission to create an account. For the protagonist, this might have been the only chance he'd ever have. On the screen, it asks if he wants to open 10 boxes, and he obviously clicks yes, saying he still has hope. The first box then comes down from the skies, and he receives an incredible N-rank toothbrush. Man, N-rank. He had never even seen a rank that low. At this point we're about to hit, I don't know, the Greek alphabet. He obviously just moves on to the next box. But by the pile of trash building up behind him, you can tell he's not having much luck. Another N-rank, another N-rank. Then comes an R-rank, which is more trash. He's heard that things like SR and SSR exist, but he's been through this countless times and has never seen anything like that. Remembering his mom in the hospital, all he wanted was a chance. That's when something shone in front of his eyes. The machine was glowing like a galaxy. He wondered if that was an SR, but by the light coming from the skies, it looked more like an SSR, which is a super special rare. Now that I think about it, I never even knew what SSR actually stood for. The protagonist is shaking all over, saying to himself that he never imagined this day would come. A miracle he could only dream of. Holding the card in his hand, he says that not giving up until now was worth it. Finally, he could be a part of Yggdrasil. This was a permission to create an account. You could become part of the Labyrinth, which was based on countless games. And of course, the only way to access them was by creating an avatar with an account. Even though the avatars were virtual bodies that didn't exist in reality, you could bring items from the Labyrinth into the real world. And those items brought from there were worth a fortune and changed the way society worked. Nowadays, the entire society revolves around Yggdrasil, and the ones running everything are the top gamers. Hee hee. Looks like the game turned, didn't it? A slap in the face of all the moms who say playing 10,000 hours of League of Legends is a waste of time. I have to be ready. If Yggdrasil shows up, who knows? The problem is, in this world, only a few people receive the right to create an account. And now, already running with a smile on his face, he finally became one of the lucky ones. He opens the door excited, saying this is his chance to start everything over. But the moment his face is outside, he takes a club hit right in the mouth. Next second, he's lying on the asphalt. Little by little, he regains consciousness, obviously not understanding what just happened. The boss then asks if this is the guy, and the tattooed one replies yes. The lucky one, who actually, was unlucky, since they saw that he got it. The guy grabs the card and hands it to the boss, who, looking at it, says he never thought there was one of these cards except in those extremely expensive auctions. The protagonist, though, grabs onto the guy's pants and says he can't take it. He was the one who got it from the machine. But bro, we're in the favela, right? Where there's no money, there's no police either. Did you like that heavy social critique? The boss just orders them to stomp on the kid. With that, our boy gets turned into a pancake. But even while getting beaten up, he grabs the boss again and demands he give the account back. The guy, though, grabs his head and asks if he forgot what it's like to live in this world as a nameless nobody. Anything good he gets from the shop has to be paid for. After all, they run things around here. But, not wanting to be unfair, he says he'll give the kid a gift. He touches his forehead, saying they always make fair trades. With that, the protagonist receives 30,000 points in his system, which was enough for one more single spin on the roulette. The guy tells him that with this, he took what the kid got in one spin, and now the kid can take another. So it's even. Before our boy could even complain, boom, face first on the asphalt again. But the kid is stubborn and once more goes to grab the guy's pants. But man, he may be tough, but he's still human, right? He just drops to the ground for good. With that, it starts raining, and the guys stay there heading out to eat something good, while leaving our boy there, man, kissing the asphalt. One of the bald guys then tells the boss to take a look. The kid was actually getting back up. The guys can't understand how the hell this bastard is still managing to stand. Then the system starts giving some alerts that his vital signs were dropping. He urgently needed to get to the nearest hospital as fast as possible. The boss starts wondering if maybe he accidentally went easy on the guy because it just doesn't make sense. And the protagonist once again starts heading back to the betting shop man. Some don't believe it, while others say that's the kind of dedication needed to get an SSR. But whatever, they're gonna stick around and keep an eye on him. And if he gets something good again, they'll just do another fair trade. The bald guy, though, asks what they're gonna do if the kid dies in the shop, to which the boss replies that they'll just take the body out of there. And that's it. After all, he's a nobody, unknown, so no one's gonna care. Meanwhile, the system keeps warning the protagonist that his vital signs keep dropping. The pain was kind of fading away, like he was about to lose consciousness. Breathing was hard, he couldn't even hear what people around him were saying. Completely shaking, he walks through the crowd. He goes to one of the betting machines, but falls to the ground, drags himself, and stands back up to try one last spin. He reaches with his finger to press the button, but the system warns that his vitals had reached a critical state. At that moment, all he could think was that his life really had been trash. That's when, in the middle of the place, everyone seemed to see the Yggdrasil tree itself. The boss couldn't even tell what exactly that was because of how much it was glowing. And suddenly, the protagonist's body started to look kind of digitalized. The system says an emergency has been detected and the condition was red. The only rescue method was a forced conversion into a character. And with that, the Yggdrasil system asks him to choose the character's name. Suddenly, the protagonist finds himself with the name Ryuki. He's there, kind of confused, not understanding where he is or what's happening. A message then says that because he leaked confidential information from the guild, he was banned. He looks around saying he would never do something like that. But the verdict is given, and all charges are accepted. With that, his ranking is removed. The protagonist seemed to recognize that voice, and two strange entities welcome him to the life of a nobody. Our guy tries to defend himself, saying he didn't do anything. But a hooded figure approaches from the side, saying it's too late now. It was time for 7017 to get up. With that, he wakes up, and looking to the side, he sees himself in a strange digital world. That place really didn't feel like reality, and he didn't know if he was dead or if this was the afterlife. When suddenly, a strange object that looked like some kind of bracelet appears and tells him to select a name. Our boy asked why the hell there was a floating vacuum cleaner talking to him, but the little robot told him to show some respect. It was the system box known as Ligon. Then it congratulated him for being the first person in existence to get a UR-ranked item. The boy had no idea what the hell that thing was talking about. As far as he knew, SSR was the highest rank. Igon then said it would explain that where he was now was right in the middle of the dividing line between reality and the virtual world. And the reason he needed a name now was to finish the conversion and access the labyrinth. But our boy knew that for that, he'd need an avatar and a game account. However, the robot says that's just a human limitation. He, on the other hand, doesn't need anything like that. Besides that, because of the critical state he was in, he initiated a forced conversion, connecting his body to Yggdrasil. Without further delay, he was supposed to go ahead and pick the character name so they could start this. Our protagonist still hadn't understood anything. He didn't know if this was a dream or reality, but there was a chance that this was the opportunity he had been needing. And with that, he chooses the name Ryuki. The settings are completed and he begins to be transferred to the labyrinth game. The moment he opens his eyes, he finds himself in a world called Phantom. He stood still for a few moments without saying anything, feeling the wind hitting his hair and his feet firm against the ground. That was completely different from any simulation he had ever experienced. Apparently, this was the labyrinth he had always wanted to enter. But in the middle of all that excitement, some skeletons appear next to him. The first one tries to attack, and he manages to dodge it by taking a small step back. Then he starts running, asking himself why there were so many creatures if, in theory, he should be in the tutorial. At least they were only level 1 skeletons, which were weak to physical attacks. Ryuki starts yelling to open the status window, but Igon just replies for him to stop asking for dumb stuff. Our boy then wants to know where the equipment is. Normally when you start a game, you get something. But the robot explains that since he got a UR-ranked item, he didn't need to follow any of the labyrinth's rules. Also, he wouldn't be benefited by any skills, stats, levels, or any kind of advantages given by the labyrinth or the world called Phantom. As long as he had Igon by his side, all he needed to do was test his luck in a random box. At least he had the beginner bonus. After logging in for 7 consecutive days, he'd receive a ticket guaranteeing an SR item. Since this was his first time, he receives 100 tickets from Igon, plus 5 more tickets for entering the world called Phantom. Ryuki celebrates that at least he got a bunch of tickets and says he wants to start opening them right away. The boy is brave. He opens the first item, picks it up, and already calls out the skeletons, saying now it's gonna be easy. But the used toilet mop he got didn't last long, no. He goes right back to running, cursing out Igon and asking where his luck is. Then he throws a wig at the skeleton, which was the second item he got. He's running around, leaving a bunch of stuff on the ground. When suddenly, the robot tells him to be careful, but it's too late. He falls flat on his face like an idiot. Man, the little robot wearing the wig comes swinging the sword. Then finally, one of the boxes beside him shines. He manages to block the attack because he got a short sword in there, right? Clearly, it was pretty meh, but better than nothing. He celebrates the decent weapon and charges forward. He says it's just a level 1 skeleton. There's no way he can lose. But I think our gamer here isn't much of a gamer, because he tried to swing the sword at the skeleton's head. Obviously, the result was that he took a stab to the shoulder and the sword did absolutely nothing. Ryuki, though, is confused. Why did he take a stab that stuck in his shoulder instead of just losing HP? Aigon explains once again that the rules for them are completely different, so HP isn't a thing. He's risking his actual life. Seeing the skeleton coming, Ryuki wonders if he got into this mess just to die in such a meaningless way. Then he charges forward to block the attack as 2 boxes fall down. As soon as they hit the ground, he manages to deflect the skeleton's blow, charges in, and sends it flying. He's confused. For a second, it felt like he had used a skill and his body moved on its own. That's when he sees that from the boxes he got 2 S-rank skills, one for defense and one for sword mastery. And Aigon says that he's the only one who isn't limited by the world of Yggdrasil. If an item or skill shows up in the box, it gets transferred to him immediately. Another skeleton was coming in to attack from the side, but the SR rank parry activates and he manages to deflect the attack. With that, the creature is left kind of frozen and he lands a clean slash on it. Man, who was it again that said you couldn't cut skeletons with a sword, huh? Who was the idiot that said that 3 minutes ago? That was obviously thanks to the SR rank sword mastery. Ryuki now understood that those skills shouldn't even exist in the world of Phantom, since Yggdrasil has a bunch of different places. But with his talent, he was ignoring the laws and restrictions. Aigon then says he always knew the kid was lucky. It's no wonder he pulled a your item. When Ryuki looked back, he saw his first SR box. Right away, he smiled and went to grab the box, saying something's not right here. But a miracle was happening in his life. 3 skeletons come at him to attack, but with the box in hand. He turns and slashes all of them at once, already warning. If they're gonna give him this much luck, he's gonna milk it for all it's worth. The world he's in is called Phantom, a game considered a work of art made by the company Lasha. Besides that, out of all the games in the labyrinth, it's the most popular, and the one that everyone goes through. Ryuki was there, man, farming skeletons non-stop. Finally, he was one of the lucky ones who was also part of this. The kid was stacking up skeletons, but the experience he got was immediately turned into points to pull more boxes. Things were completely different for him, and he doesn't even have a level. Also, from the math he did, he'd have to kill 15 skeletons just to try his luck one single time. Now it was time for him to take a look at what to do with that SSR item he pulled. To him, it was something absurd, didn't even make sense for it to exist. But Aigon says if it's in front of him, then it exists. No wonder it's SSR, man. Stuff like that is always good. But our boy puts it away, saying for now he'll leave it sealed. That's because it's going to be perfect for dealing with that person, or actually, their whole guild. For now, he's going to hide that power for the perfect moment. The skills required roulette points to level up. At least for him, things were real simple. All he needed was for the game to keep sending monsters and for him to keep killing them. He liked it when the only thing he had to do was keep grinding. Sometime later, an explosion happens in the forest and another skeleton falls to the ground, leaving behind a crystal in front of him. This was already his 3rd day in the game, and obviously he had been doing all the daily quests and farming all day long. He finally managed to gather 1,500 points, which was enough to do 10 pulls. Man, I think that's better than Genshin Impact, right? Farmed 3 days and got 10 pulls. Not that bad at all. Aigon is there celebrating, saying he's excited to see what the kid's gonna pull this time. But Ryuki spends 1,400 points to level up both skills. The robot loses it, saying this bastard should try his luck. It's way more fun. Our boy wants to know the probabilities, and the system explains. 70% chance for N rank, 27% for R, 2.7% for SR, and 0.3% for SSR. Then he wants to know why his inventory is full of trash. The robot tells him to stop whining. He already pulled several good skills. But Ryuki replies that he's only going to open boxes with the daily mission rewards. The rest of the points he gets, he'll spend to upgrade things. The robot says it got it, but then asks, so how long are you planning to stay here in the tutorial forest? But our protagonist is cautious man. He needs weapons and to level up his skills. Only then will he leave that place. He's someone who knows this world better than anyone, and he needs to use his knowledge from the past to the fullest. The starting forest wasn't an exception, and he was going to make sure to take full advantage of it. That's because it's a place where, once you leave, you can't come back. So before taking risks out in the world, he needed to make the most of it. He then tells Aigon that he needs to practice a lot to understand what the limits of the system are and what he can actually do even without having any stats. Apparently, 7 days have already passed. And of course, leveling up was starting to slow down more and more. At least both SR rank skills were already at level 3. Unfortunately, there was no option to level them up further, which shows this is the limit of the tutorial. But then Aigon gives him a little pat on the face, saying it's time to claim this 7-day login reward. Even though it was a guaranteed SR, there was still a chance it could be a useless SR. But man, it's all or nothing, and he commands the box to open. The golden package falls to the ground, glows, and then he seems confused, asking if something like that can actually exist in this world. He'd receive an SR rank sword, but at the same time it's a sword, it also has a revolver built into it. That one's efficient. But he knows that, considering the Phantom World's story, weapons like that shouldn't exist, which means if anyone sees something like that, the world is going to go nuts. He tests it out by doing a little light cut on a tree, which instantly gets sliced like butter. Even considering that he has sword mastery, the power of that thing was out of the ordinary. That's when he remembers that when he entered the game, he was basically dying in real life and wonders what happens if he dies here. Aigon explains that if he dies, he'll receive a backup and will be resurrected. But he wouldn't want to go through that since reconstructing the body would hurt like hell. Ryuki, though, replies that he doesn't care about the pain and tells him to go ahead and use the tickets. He needed to increase his combat power even more, even if just a little. Sometime later, he's already re-equipped with a rank R set, but hey, at least it's better than nothing. He then tells Aigon to get ready and start recording everything. From this second on, not a single moment of his gameplay should be missed. The robot asks what the file name should be, and he says to call it, the disc that backed away but escaped from the abyss. The robot says okay, but wants to know why he suddenly wants to record something like that. Our boy explains that most of the games from the company Raksha were kind of rushed in development, and even this one, which was one of the most well-made, wasn't that different. There are still some bugs. Like, for example, right in front of him is this boss knight, who was supposed to appear way later in the game. The system announces that this is the Black Knight of Chaos, a creature blessed by the god of darkness. And with that, a sudden mission appears to eliminate him. He would receive 10 tickets and one guaranteed S-rank ticket. For someone who was already planning to kill the creature, getting a bonus on top was perfect. The boss raises his sword, telling the boy to prove himself and slashes down hard. Ryuki, though, with that overpowered sword and level 3 parry skill, manages to deflect the monster's attack backwards. Just as he expected, since he doesn't have levels, he's limited to what his skills can do. With that, he tells the knight to get ready and lands a solid blow to the chest, but the strike doesn't seem to do anything. Aigon congratulates him for his bravery and says it looks like his attacks are working. Obviously, Ryuki is confused, especially since he didn't deal any damage. That's when Aigon tells him to remember, he's in a more realistic world. Then the protagonist understands. He was fighting like a character trying to chip away HP by hitting armor. But he wasn't bound by the rules anymore, and in this case, needed to fight more realistically. With that, he throws himself at the boss in search of a real weak point. The knight tries to block his blow, but Ryuki manages to defend with the sword and get closer. He stabs the sword deep into the armor, and fires a shot right in the middle of the arm. The stump falls to the ground, and the knight lets out a groan of agony. Ryuki is finally starting to understand what Aigon keeps saying about him not having HP, but at the same time being able to break the rules of the game. He didn't have to worry about the life of the creatures. What mattered was fighting in a realistic way. In the middle of all that haze in his head, out of nowhere, the monster hits him right in the shoulder. The problem is, Ryuki knows that the Black Knight shouldn't have any long-range attack pattern. Then he sees the strange energy that hit him also coming from the knight's arm. And the knight says that whoever threatens the Lord deserves to experience the abyss. Ryuki manages to dodge, but he's already starting to think maybe he underestimated this creature. Maybe the boss that appears at the end of the game is different from this one in the tutorial. After all, when you die in the starting village, you're sent to the first area, which means no one's ever fought this guy twice. He's in the middle of defending against a bunch of attacks, but of course, several of them are hitting him too. One lands a direct hit right in his stomach. The scene then cuts to our boy slamming his hand on a table, saying he doesn't understand. The strategy had gone wrong again, and he has no idea what the problem was. Back in those days, he belonged to Guild Lindsay, and he was an analyst, the guy who receives the data. But he says the area where he was trying to work out the strategy had already been conquered by Linful. Ryuki insists, saying this time it's way more efficient. Besides, they'd be a bit ahead of the other guilds. But the guy just throws the papers away and says he's not even a player or someone with an amazing rank. So why is he trying to make decisions for Guild Lindsay? In this place, they don't do replays. That was the decision made by the best one there, Linful. So why was he questioning it? Ryuki is back in the room, slamming the table again, saying those idiots keep up with that no replay thing just so Linful can keep the ranks. But unfortunately, he had to calm down and focus on his mom's surgery costs. That was way more important. Suddenly, someone calls out Ryuki's name and he jumps. The person apologizes, saying they thought he might want some coffee. It's another researcher named Cynthia, who already says that apparently the guides he was working on got rejected again. He looks exhausted and she walks up asking if he wants a little help. Not the kind of help we're hoping he wants, but he says he wants help with some classified info to finish the guide. She says okay and smiles, saying that since he wants it, she'll get her best. Sometime later, Ryuki is back at the hospital, telling his mom not to worry. He already scheduled the surgery. She asks about the costs, but he says it's all fine. The guild have finally approved it. His mom gets all happy and hugs him, saying she's proud of how hard he works. He replies that everything's going to work out and says that hard work really was bringing him luck. But in the next scene, he's being expelled from Guild Lindsay for leaking secrets. He tries to say something, but the guy just tells him not to even defend himself. They already have enough evidence. Even though he had been discreet, they had already gotten information from Linful and Cynthia. Oh, that bastard. Look, in Linful's arms even. That cursed woman. Man, she tricked me with that little smile. Now I already want him pulling out an SSR gun and shooting that wretched woman right in the head. And that damn Linful is still there saying that he must be the idiot Ryuki, the one who kept sending those ridiculous guides. Seeing the kid with that stupid look on his face really fired him up. Then he turns to Cynthia and says she went through a lot to have to be near that piece of trash. But today they were going out to celebrate. With that, he walks off saying Ryuki should know where he came from. There's no point in being an analyst if you can't even analyze properly, let alone trying to make a guide so others can surpass you. Truth is, he doesn't know where he belongs. Then he walks out the door, saying it's a shame, but the insignificant life he had has come to an end. At that moment, our boy lost the little dignity he still had in that city and dropped to unknown rank man. At that point, all the money, status, honor, and family he had were taken away. He even lost his name. That's capitalism at its finest. Bro, you lose your money, not even your name's left behind. But now Ryuki is back in the dungeon holding off the Black Knight's attack, who's impressed that he's still standing after taking a hit like that. Our boy keeps resisting, and then the monster raises its sword, saying that in the end there's no way he's getting out of this. The attack comes full force at Ryuki, who wonders if this is really going to be the end again. How different would this opportunity be from his last life? Thinking of his mother and Cynthia, he swears he's going to make her pay for everything. Then he parries the knight's stomach attack, pulls out his own sword, and leaps forward. He grabs the knight's head, drives the sword into the helmet, and remembers those two pieces of trash. The knight falls to the ground, and he swears he won't forgive either of them. With that, the creature explodes, man. For killing a Black Knight at a low level, he receives 15,000 experience. On top of that, the emergency quest gives 10 tickets and 1 guaranteed SR ticket. While disintegrating, the knight tells him to surpass Oblivion and go beyond. Ryuki just replies that there's no need to say it, he's going to keep moving forward. Igon recorded everything, and now a blonde guy is watching, wanting to know when the video was uploaded. The other person replies that it was just a few hours ago and asks if he wants them to reach out. But the guy replies he doesn't need that, he remembers the face. He just wants the car ready and also wants to know where Linful is. That guy, by the way, is the real leader of Guild Lindsay, Gabriel Darius. Apparently, Linful wasn't just the strongest in fights. The video our boy posted on IGGTube is of course causing a stir on social media. No one can believe someone went one-on-one with the glitched tutorial boss. What didn't make sense was that if it was in Phantom, there's no way he could have had a sword with a gun attached. On top of that, those reflex skills seemed way too strange. All of that made people wonder whether the video was fake or if the kid was abusing a bug that shouldn't exist. Man, the thing's already playing almost like a blockbuster on the big screen, and nobody can believe how fast he was reacting. Another analyst from Guild Lindsay named Laguna wants to know who this Ryu 7017 is. She considers herself a pro-level analyst, but even she can't understand how he beat that boss. She tells the team that this definitely seems like some kind of bug they should already know about. But the guy with the glasses says that the face is definitely who he's thinking of, but it really shouldn't make any sense. Then we see Linful turning around, asking what's this talk about Ryuki. Damn it, why are villains always hanging around the hot ones? And there's Linful, saying he has no idea who that guy is. But the man in the suit responds that the analyst from 3 years ago, who used to make some pretty solid guides, the one Linful asked to be kicked out of the guild, became a nobody. Linful just replies that the world is full of people with that same story. The man wants to know if he saw the Black Knight video, and Linful says yes, he already saw it. To him, it looked much more like some sort of bug, because clearly it's impossible to kill that creature in the tutorial. Then the man standing says Linful needs to understand that the person in the video is exactly Ryuki, and he should know what that means. Linful turns around angry and tells his brother to stop talking about that bastard. Since when are they cowards who care about someone like that? They shouldn't even waste mental energy thinking about that kid. Gabriel just decides to say nothing, man. Another guy approaches and asks what they're going to do, because he says this Ryuki seems to be trying to provoke them on purpose. Apparently, it looks like a trap, so they better be careful. First, they'll need to find out where he went after being kicked out of the guild to know what the next steps are. He walks off, saying to himself there's no need to rush. They have time to gather information. The problem is figuring out how his brother is going to handle it. Back with our boy, Igon says he's already recovered 87% and can move. Our guy stands up, drenched in blood, saying the pain was worse than he imagined. Because Igon explains that of course it was, multiple organs and muscles were torn, not to mention several bone fractures. But Ryuki smiles, saying that soon he'll get used to it, especially because he's going to experience it countless times. He keeps moving forward and sees a tower on the horizon. It was finally time to say goodbye to the tutorial. The demonic tower is the main content of this world. The problem is, it's something he can't access yet. He'll need to first level up several skills in the dungeons around the tower. As they move forward, Ivan says he thinks it was crazy that he shared the video. Now a bunch of people know about him, they'll want to kill him. But Ryuki says he doesn't think it'll be that serious. Most people will just think it's a bug, and bugs happen all the time. Besides, the person at the top of Lindsay tends to be much more cautious, so he'll want to gather intel before figuring out how to act. And that's exactly why he needs as much attention as possible. The more famous he gets, the fewer options Lindsay has to act against him, because everything would be made public. Not to mention, if that conversion works the way the robot explained, he can hide his body from this game world whenever he wants. It's like he's kind of log out, but since he doesn't have a real body in the real world, his log out state is like existing in the void, or at least that's what I think it is. And the little robot says he's using the system in a pretty smart way. Ryuki, on the other hand, is just thinking he can't wait to get revenge on that damn Linful. He's sure that once he starts making enough noise, that guy will try something. And that's exactly when he's going to strike. The system then says it's tired of all the chatting. It's time to open some tickets. He had 20 pulls, 2 guaranteed SR pulls, and 15,000 points. Time to start spinning and try his luck. But Ryuki says going to the city is the priority because he has to save a revival point. However, Ivan explains that this only happens to people who are brought from the other world. His body actually already exists in this world. At that point, he activates the conversion system and returns to that shop where he died. I'm a little confused, but I think what happened is he now actually exists in that world, and when he converts, he comes from that world into this one, while people from Earth actually go from Earth to there. In the end, everybody's interacting with each other, right? But I think that's kind of the idea. He's there, kind of confused, looking at himself, saying he was just about to die, but now he's not feeling anything. The system says that's because he's just too awesome. Besides, first it's best to block the cameras in that place. But man, here come those gangsters again, already showing up, saying that the bastard looks pretty healthy for someone who supposedly died. No way, right? These gangsters, they set up some tent outside and just hang around all day. The alarm goes off. He just gets up and walks out. Ryuki isn't dumb. He breaks the window and takes off running man. Iman says he's looking for an escape route and our guy follows the directions. But he ends up in a dead end. He punches the robot, saying the bastard just led him straight to his death, apparently. But the little robot explains that there's a reason for everything. The gangsters then catch up to Ryuki and say he's a bastard for making everyone run around at this hour of the night. Now they want to know what the kid pulled from the machine yesterday at the moment he disappeared out of nowhere. If he doesn't want to die, he just needs to hand it over and everything will be fine. Obviously, no way is Ryuki handing over Igon like that. The robot tells him to grab a wooden sword that's nearby. That's because at the moment he can't bring over any items from that world, so he's going to have to use whatever's close by. Ryuki picks it up, saying this is a joke. How's he supposed to fight these guys with that? But a little system window pops up. The gangsters start laughing, asking if the kid really thinks he's going to win using something like that. The Tigran of Jersey guy charges forward, telling him to give up now. It'll hurt less. But then, whack, he takes a hit to the arm, and then a smack to the face. Everyone jumps back in shock, and the boss immediately orders everyone to go in. There's even some office dude in the middle of the gangsters, man. But Ryuki says this is what's insane. Even in this world outside the game, he still has access to his abilities, folks. He has no idea why it's possible, but he's sure it's ridiculously overpowered. A few seconds earlier, when he smacked that guy, everyone got confused. They seem to have seen a strange glow. The boss, though, grits his teeth and tells everyone to go in, as if they're going to lose to one unknown kid. But now the bastard is sure. That kid must have pulled some seriously good item to be able to fight them like that. Still, they're part of the Black Snake, the group that dominates the Unknown's territory. But his expression changes, his face goes dark, and the next second, there's just one bald dude left, taking a hit to the head. Ryuki even asks, is that really all you little thugs can do? At the moment he picked up that wooden sword from the ground, he understood what's going on. Most people send their body to interact with the avatar in the game, but he, on the other hand, sent his own body into the game, and that's why he feels so much pain over there. Obviously, the advantage is completely unbalanced, because the stronger his body gets in the game, the stronger he gets in real life. I don't even know where from, but a bunch more thugs show up, man. They all charge in, but man, against someone with SSR, they've got no chance. A light tap to the leg or arm and the bones are already broken. Then our boy walks up calling for the leader, thanking him for the help he gave yesterday. The chump is spinning his stick trying to hit something, telling him not to come any closer. But Ryuki just blocks it with a level 3 parry and knocks the weapon right out of his hands. Right away, he asks if the guy's going to stop right there. can't just walk away unscathed after all of his underlings got beat up. The leader throws himself to grab the stick, shouting at him to shut up, but gets smacked right on the hand, immediately crying out in pain. He tries to throw a little punch in rage, but gets a club to the mouth too. Falls to the ground like trash, and Ryuki says that now he understands why this power feels so good. At this moment, he must be feeling just as good as they felt when they stomped on him that day. But he's sure that the leader's busted-up face suits him way better. The guy starts begging for forgiveness, asking him to stop. But Ryuki says that the card he stole that day was the last hope he had, and even then the guy still took it. So now they're not leaving until they've also lost every bit of hope they had. The guy crying says that no one known ever does something like that and gets away with it. But Ryuki man raises the club, saying that unfortunately, nobody's going to hear about what happened here. The chump is about to beg again. We see one of his eyes spinning and his head snaps sideways. Damn, I thought he was gonna be the kind of MC that actually kills. But nope, the robot's just asking why he let them live. Ryuki replies that it's because of what the robot did, and to avoid raising suspicion. What the robot did was enter the gangsters' minds and manipulate their vision, so they don't even know Ryuki is still alive. Well, I'll forgive you this time, he says, but next time, I better see some killing. Got it. Yeah, protagonist, for me you gotta kill. Don't come at me with this forgiving the villain nonsense. Then he says they're going to need to hide Igon's existence. Nobody in this world can know that an item like him exists. He grabs some random little knife and realizes the aura activates. As long as he's holding something that represents a blade or a sword, he can still use it. And honestly, his knife was way more convenient than walking around the freaking sword. Ryuki was about to ask something, but the robot seems to read his mind and answers before he even opens his mouth. Says no, his body won't age faster in the real world. That's because his true existence is now inside Yggdrasil. Outside, sometime later, our boy is talking to the little gangster, saying that this modern world is incredible. People recover real fast. Now it made sense why he let the guy live. He tells him to hand over the ticket, otherwise things will get messy. The guy obviously says he's saving up money, but needs more time. But that little knife's already pressed against his forehead, and our boy says that since he spared his life, it's best he doesn't forget that. The guy apologizes and Ryuki tells him to start walking. They're going to get it right now. In the red light district, there's this poor guy scratching his neck all weird. Looks like he's got some kind of demonic virus or something. One of the gang members shows up and kicks him out of the way, telling him to get lost. That place is a store called Shutenku, and the guy says most transactions go through there. Ryuki instantly realizes it's probably where his ticket got sold. When he walks in, a guy in a cloak notices a customer entered. It sounded like the voice of an old person, and our boy asks if he's the owner. I don't know if this person's really that old. And no, I don't even know if it's a guy. I don't know what it is. But I know he's a shop owner and his name is Suzuki. The robot, in a digital form that only Ryuki can see, says that thing in front of him isn't a person. It's analyzing his data in real time. Our boy had already noticed the weird voice and says that cybernetic robots like that should have already been banned. Suzuki says it's impressive that he noticed so easily, but it's ridiculous to talk about laws to someone who works in the black market. Then our boy wants to know what happened to the account creation ticket. Suzuki glances at the beaten-up gangster and already gets the idea. He explains that item is one of the most popular there is, so it was sold as soon as it came in. He asks if that's all, and Ryuki says no. He pulls out a bag and says he's there to make some trades, since that's what this place specializes in. Suzuki goes to check it out, saying he's curious to see what the kid brought. And he seems surprised, right? I think it's those orbs he was farming in the dungeon earlier. He asks, all of this, these are mana orbs, and asks if he even knows how valuable each one is. But Ryuki answers that clearly he's being underestimated, just because he's an unknown. Obviously, he knows something as basic as that. At the very least, our boy should understand prices. He used to be a strategist in a guild, he's not dumb. I hope so, anyway. In the dungeons, there are two types of items. The normal ones, like swords and shields and all that, and some called specials. The specials, for example, are things like potions, mana orbs, that kind of stuff. The higher the grade, the purer it is, and the more power you can get out of it. But Suzuki replies that it doesn't make sense to sell something like that on the black market, if the price is already set by the regular market. Why is he trying to do that here? Ryuka just tells him not to get involved and to go ahead and sell. That's what he came there to negotiate. Suzuki, however, finds it strange. An unknown who doesn't have access to the game shouldn't have mana stones to sell. Then he already tells Luga, right, that little thug there, to disappear from the place. The guy's all crook, wondering if Ryuki authorizes it, who just tells him to scram. With that, the door explodes right on the poor guy. The seller then says that yeah, it really is strange for an unknown to be selling mana stones, unless he stole them. But he also knows of someone who's been defying logic. Ryuki is about to ask what it is, and the guy says he's truly surprised. The star of that video just walked into his shop. With that, he opens his arms, welcoming Ryu 7017. If he wanted to hide his identity, he should have been much more careful, especially carrying a mana stone like that. It's an item dropped specifically from the Black Chaos Knight, and you can see that on the app. With all that said, he wants to know what Ryu 7017 is doing in his store. Yeah, this modern world is crazy, man. You post 10 seconds of a video, and everybody already knows who you are. Ryuka just admits that it's him and says they should focus on the business. Suzuki says fine and wants to know what he's looking for. Our boy points at his head and says he's looking for a mod. The seller says he must be going crazy, doesn't even know what that is. But Ryuki responds that he knows there are apps that artificially alter some things inside the labyrinth. Even an unknown like him knows about that. The seller then says that apparently he doesn't know anything. Most of the mods were cancelled due to limitations or critical failures. Our boy, though, uninterested, just says a black market vendor must be the only one who still has a few stored away. He wants those that reduce the game's difficulty, and he doesn't care about the side effects. Suzuki asks if he didn't see that guy outside the store scratching his neck. That guy is one of the unlucky ones who tried using a mod and got wrecked. Man, what the hell is that? Back in my day, you tried using a little hack and you got banned, alright? That's it. The poor guy had his brain fried. And Suzuki says that was from a simple pain reduction mod, and it caused all that. Obviously, the more changes you try to make, the worse the side effects can be. That guy tried to reduce the amount of pain he felt, and now all his other senses are extremely heightened. Basically, he's ruined, and even after removing the mod, he couldn't recover. From insanity to instant death, even spontaneous combustion, all sorts of things can happen. And that's why mods are illegal. But then Ryuki says he's not just some regular player. It's no coincidence he defeated the Chaos Knight. People are already calling him a cheater, so he should know how he plays. He doesn't care about the cost or the risk. If there's any mod sitting in this place, he wants it. Suzuki asks if he wants the ones that were discarded for being extremely dangerous. Ryuka just says yes, he wants to take a look. The kid snaps his fingers and says fine then. He can take a look at the ones that were discontinued. If he really has the guts to use something like that, he can start testing. In the box there are CDs, man, from version 1 to 25. I would never in my life install something from a CD into my head, are you crazy? But Ryuki is there thinking. He knows this stuff is risky, like he has his reasons. That first mod right there was triple power attack. And Igon already says that one's going to be a total failure. Actually, it's just exaggerated numbers and doesn't even have an effect. The next device, in theory, gave the power to see 1 second into the future. Once again, Igon says it's trash. It'll just make his vision blurry. The other mod made your character look amazing, and Igon says that it's possible to do that with some kind of illusion, but it's useless. The other one increased all skill damage by 20%, but it would destroy his brain. Also, it would increase the pain he feels by 3,000 times, which clearly wasn't a good idea. Ryuki already realized that all of this was just trash, until he saw one that was a probability manipulator. Igon analyzes it and says that the person who made this was truly a genius. It wasn't very effective, but it increased his luck by between 0.3 and 0.5%. And considering how it would be implemented in our boy, that would probably result in around 0.5 to 1% for him. Ryuki knew that 1% might not seem like much, but when it comes to luck, man, that's a lot. He then turns to Suzuki and says he's going to take 3 mods, including that one. The seller replies that apparently he's not all talk and really did pick out the few that were actually decent from that pile of trash. Obviously, the protagonist finds that peculiar. Why did this bastard offer him junk to begin with? The shopkeeper apologizes and says he wasn't trying to mess with the kid. It's just that another client asked him to take a look at those mods, and he'd already seen a few of them. Then Ryuki wants to know if that request came from the person who created those mods, to which Suzuki replies that soon enough he'll find out. Besides, he'll give him a special discount, since those things would have never even seen the light of day otherwise. Then some messages appear asking if he wants to install the applications, but they warn that once he clicks yes, it's irreversible. In his mind, he already decides to install, but then Suzuki says he wants to ask one last thing. If these mods work, what is it that he wants to do with this power? The scene doesn't give an answer, man. We see a tree, and some time later, Suzuki is laughing like a lunatic on the ground. Our boy pointed upward and told me that he wants to reach the skies. He doesn't want to be bronze or silver, not even gold or platinum. He wants to take everyone down along the way and reach the top of that world. That crazy seller, who clearly has some kind of mental issue, replies that he's looking forward to seeing what the kid is going to do. Sometime later, back in the game, he's holding his identification card in the phantom world. He thought it would be hard since he's an unknown, but obviously, no one was going to suspect anything. After all, an unknown shouldn't even be in the game. But now finally, he had arrived at the starting village. Everyone's happy. The old man's selling his overpriced apple, and the kids are running around with their goofy little faces. In the middle of all that is our boy, impressed at how peaceful that place seemed. Suddenly, Igon pops up, telling him to start pulling tickets already. It's been a long time since he tried his luck. Ryuki tells the gacha addict to calm down a bit. He doesn't want to draw too much attention. But that's when our boy notices that there are people staring at him weird. The protagonist explains that he already knows this very well. It seems that NPCs are made to not like players. Of course, that's because players also don't treat NPCs like people, which ends up creating this vicious cycle. Then, a guy in a blue jacket gets slammed to the ground. One with a beanie walks up, asking how the hell he had the nerve to try to rob him. The guy says he's starving, while the protagonist wonders what's going on. Also, the NPC's clothes looked very different from the rest of the people there. Ed explains that this guy seems to have come from another game in the labyrinth called Alien Space, but that game was shut down 3 months ago, or basically, the entire world over there was deleted. The only way people could survive was to migrate to another game in the labyrinth. Now it's explained why there are a bunch of people wearing those weird clothes and starving. Adapting to a completely different world is not something that happens overnight. Igon says that as soon as a world is considered useless by Yggdrasil, it gets deleted on the spot. So you better start running because that could even happen to Phantom. Ryuka replies that it's all good as long as he can destroy Linful and that damn guild Lindsay. Then he's fine with it. Sometime later, he managed to get a room in an inn and finally had a place to sleep. At that very moment, the robot is already talking again, saying this is the perfect time to pull some tickets and play gacha. Also, his probability had slightly changed. The NNR items had lower chances now, and the SR and SSR were a little better. SSR, which used to be 0.3%, had now increased to 1%, more than 3 times higher. He then tells Zygon that the long-awaited moment has come, man. Time to spin the roulette. The robot celebrates immediately, saying he has 40 tickets, 2 with guaranteed SR and 15,000 points. It was going to be enough to open a ton of stuff. Ryuki tells him to start first with the 40 regular tickets. Obviously, his expression wasn't too excited, right? A whole bunch of N-rank and R-rank items. In front of the poor guy, a pile of useless trash started stacking up. He falls to his knees in disbelief that he didn't get even one decent thing. Apparently, the amount he got was a lie. He didn't pull a single item above R. The robot, however, says he can already start a toothbrush store. At that, Ryuki grabs the little bastard, saying he's going to turn him into a piece of scrap metal. While the robot is begging to be let go, suddenly, something shines. From the skies come 3 guaranteed drops, right, man? Right away, his tone changes, saying he can always count on his buddy. I don't know if he used those guaranteed tickets, but he managed to get a Flash Step SR skill and an SSR intuition. The intuition at level 1 boosted his instincts. What at max level, it would allow him to even understand the essence of the world. The Flash Step was pretty obvious, a quick movement ability. Already excited to see the effect, he activates intuition. But at that moment, he didn't feel any difference at all. It didn't seem like anything compared to the other SSR skills he had gotten. He decides to take a look at the system, and there it says he'll have to spend 7,000 points to level up to the next stage, which to him is a total ripoff, since the other skills cost 2,100 to get to level 3. Igon already says not to spend points on a skill, he doesn't even know what it does. It'd be better to enjoy the hype and pull more because that's way more fun. But obviously Ryuki isn't going to do that, man. He's going to use those points to upgrade his skills. That's what. Sword Mastery and Parry go to level 4 and Flash Step to level 2. With that, he had 8,730 points left, and it cost 8,400 to take Mastery to level 5, while he's sitting there wondering if he should do it or not. The robot tells him he should go explore more. He should obviously pull more tickets and have fun. But the little bot breaks in half when Ryuki orders the system to take Sword Mastery straight to level 5, man. And then the system says that now that Mastery is maxed out, he can upgrade the rank. Just as he expected, it was worth reaching that limit. When he activates the rank upgrade, a golden light appears. A stone orb forms in the room. He asks Ligan what that is, but the poor bot is lying on the ground, devastated that he didn't get another chance to roll some gacha. The strange object keeps coming down, until the system grants him an achievement. For having maxed out Mastery, he earns 10 tickets, and apparently it became Ligon's System Mastery, an SR Plus skill that not only boosts his sword damage, but now gives him a blade aura as well. Ryuki had never even heard of SR Plus skills in the Phantom world, so maybe this was the strongest skill on that entire continent. While he's celebrating, arms wide open, the little system is asking why he, the system of luck, ended up paired with someone this cautious. His whole plan was to witness the glorious downfall of someone driven by greed. Ryuki is already at the door telling him to stop crying and get moving because now they were finally ready to begin. He wants to know what they're going to do. And obviously, man, it's time to go into the first dungeon. And the plan wasn't just to go into the dungeon, but to set the record in it. Ah, you sneaky devil. Now you're gonna use those strategies you were selling to that guy Linful, huh? Gonna humiliate everyone. In front of the dungeon entrance, a guy with a giant axe asks his group if they're ready. From now on, everyone was supposed to stay alert and not let any items slip by. That's when our protagonist walks past like he's just casually strolling in. The guy immediately calls out to him and asks where he thinks he's going without a group. He should know how dangerous this place is. But our boy just says that he knows very well what he's getting into. The guys start thinking that apparently they've just run into some lunatic they've never seen before. And his buddy next to him, who's so important they didn't even draw eyes on him, says that in the past 3 months, no one has managed to complete this place. The leader is sure it's a waste of time. But there's Ryuki Man, Witch's hideout, and the goal was to break Linful's record. Gunblade ready, aura active, time to break some records. The witch watches from her orb, saying once again this bastard has invaded her domain. A filthy intruder like him shouldn't profane this sacred ground with his presence. But it was fine. She had ways to bring judgment upon anyone trying to enter that place. She would personally tear him apart and offer him as a sacrifice. That was obviously the boss of the place, and her level was just a series of question marks. Just by entering the dungeon, the sneaky kid got 1 ticket. The only problem was that the place was so dark he couldn't see anything ahead. Like seriously, I see torches on the wall. This poor guy must be blind. Apparently, the biggest problem with this dungeon is that every time you enter, it completely changes, so it's kind of hard to create a fixed strategy. He's sure that Linful cleared it in 17 hours and 30 minutes. Man, what the heck? 17 hours in the first dungeon? Might as well bring a wife and start a family while farming. Checking the rankings, he sees second place is held by someone named Azia, or well, a person named Azia, part of the Gaz clan, and they only took 8 minutes longer than Linful. Considering they were almost as good as Linful, it's a name worth keeping in mind. Suddenly, he stops, and looking up, there's a swarm of mosquitoes. Wait, not mosquitoes, giant bats. The problem is, not only do they move in huge groups, but they also stack a ton of debuffs. So even if you don't die right away, you just keep suffering until you can't take it anymore. But he's already pulling out an item, saying that's a story of the past. He throws something on the ground and says to Lagan, "This is how you handle this place." The thing explodes, spreading light everywhere. And if you thought it was a flashbang, you're totally wrong. It was a sound bomb, and now the suckers are falling everywhere with bleeding ears. Man, I felt bad for the little bats for a second, but then bam, sword to the chest. The kid has zero mercy. He already cleared the farming zone, slashing everything in sight. He says this place isn't that hard once you know the tricks. What he wants to know, though, is why no one's finished this place in the past 3 months. Ivan wants to know why that would be strange. So Ryuki explains that, in theory, this is supposed to be a low-difficulty dungeon. For everyone to be struggling this much, something else is going on. They keep going through the cave, and Ivan wants to know if he's sure they're going the right way. Our boy tells him not to worry. He knows the patterns of this place, even if the map always changes. Ivan might not know, but he's written countless strategy guides when he was an analyst. This dungeon right here, he's simulated it thousands of times, so he knows exactly what he's doing. Igon, however, comments that they've already passed through this area like 12 times. It wouldn't be a shame to admit he's lost. But Ryuki just ignores him and goes left, saying the entrance is right up ahead. He tells him to look at that stalactite on the left, the one with the cut. You had to pass through this path 32 times, and when the cut showed up, it was proof that the route had changed. The little robot is confused, wanting to know how he came to such a precise conclusion. Obviously, right? It must have been trial and error thousands of times, and Ryuki just tells him to shut up because he has to focus now. But to make Igon happy, he explains that they had someone in the group who had a certain ability that helped discover those things. And in the past, before strategy guides were developed, people actually used to memorize every element of the map and tried to guide themselves that way. So even though everything changes, he still has an idea of which way to go. The robot asks if he really memorized all those tiny differences from a place as useless as this, and already laughs, saying he now realizes his master is completely out of his mind. As they continue through the cave, Ryuki is sure he spent more time here than he wanted. Not to mention he still didn't understand why no one had cleared this in the past 3 months. Meanwhile, the witch is yelling, saying that apparently he escaped from the labyrinth, but now he'll fall into despair. The second he steps on the death magic, he'll instantly die. And man, that's exactly what he just did. Something activates, a flame surrounds his body, he freezes for a moment. Ivan wants to know what happened, and he answers he's not sure, but it felt like he was going to die if he took another step. Then he pulls out a weird little doll from his inventory and throws it forward. As soon as it hits the ground, the flames appear again. He recognizes them immediately. That was instant death magic, something extremely rare that should only appear much later at the tower. Why was something like that in this place? Igon immediately says that if unknown changes are happening, it's better to retreat. And now Yuki is deep in thought. A trap this brutal, right from the start, was dangerous. Maybe it'd be better to turn back. But when he looks behind him, he sees a strange path. And for a moment, he feels like it'd be okay to go that way. He starts realizing that these gut feelings and even the fact he spotted the trap are all thanks to the intuition skill. Watching through the orb, the witch says this bastard is really lucky. He survived by a single second. But it was just a matter of time. No matter where he went in this endless labyrinth, eventually he would die. but suddenly he disappears from her orb. She's confused, uses a new spell, and locates him again. But now it doesn't make sense. He's in the central hall, which is really far from where he was before. Apparently, that damn rat managed to escape the illusion. But it's fine. This place is filled with traps, and that's where he'll die. Except a second later, Ryuki disappears again. She's confused and slams the table in anger, trying to understand what the hell this bastard is doing. Our boy was jumping through the very edges of the traps, dodging them all. The witch had no idea how he was doing it or why he kept disappearing from her sight. So she decides to end it all before anything else goes wrong and activates all the traps at once. A blue flame surrounds the whole orb, and she celebrates, saying, "Finally got rid of that cursed intruder." But behind her, something explodes. A voice from behind says that the materials weren't that great, but there were still things worth using. Aigon's voice follows up, saying that if he had any sense, he'd disable that skill immediately. The witch turns and sees the two of them talking. Aigon scolding him, saying that this new skill of his is totally broken, and he can't just walk around with something like that. Naturally, the witch wants to know how the hell he got there. But our boy says he's too lazy to explain, so he's just gonna handle this quickly. He knows very well that she's the Witch of Solitude, no Miss Serial. Or rather, there was another name that fit her way better. Bug. The witch says the answer she wants is for that bastard to say how he got out of the traps. Ryuko replies that he almost lost his head. The path to this place was filled with deadly things all over. Aigon wants to know why he's talking in such a weird tone. Just a bit before that, our boy was looking down at the ground, watching the traps and wondering if there was any way to beat this. Maybe he should wait until the bug in this place got patched. But that's when he remembered. He needs his name to be known by everyone, before his former guild comes after him. That's when Aigon says he had detected multiple traps, and at that point it was definitely better to retreat. Then half the room exploded and he jumped to the side. Aigon freaked out, saying this bastard was trying to commit suicide. But then our boy told him to calm down. That skill he had gotten was even better than he thought. Back with the witch, he says the intuition skill is really good. The guy is even showing her, telling her that's how he got into the room. That one he wanted to explain in detail. Aigon says that as good as it is, it's still linked to a human, so eventually he's going to hit its limit. Ryuki gets ready to attack, saying that's obvious, but what matters right now is survival. Suddenly, the window showing the witch's name starts glitching, and she screams the intruder's name. Several instant-death traps appear in front of her, and Ryuki rushes in. The first attack comes, he ducks just in time. If not for the skill, he'd be dead. He starts to realize that the witch seemed to be getting corrupted by the bug in her. Whatever her pattern was, he didn't have time to figure it out. He had to attack now. So he uses Flash Step to get in close. With his sword aura active, he says she really is dangerous. But this is the end. Wham! A clean cut to the neck, separating the body from the robot's head. Ryuki thinks that was way too easy. And then the attacks keep coming from the rest of her body that's still there. He manages to back off, and when he looks again, she's reforming. Now he's sure. She's the reason for everything that's been happening in this dungeon. And the problem is, normal attacks didn't seem to do anything. She sends another wave of spells in his direction, which he manages to dodge as he keeps advancing. At that moment, the key was to keep his intuition skill active at maximum, because without it, he'd die on the spot. As he's dodging, he turns around and asks if Aigon has any ideas. And Aigon replies that just to help the kid out, he's going to activate the system so he can try to analyze her. As soon as he says to show the window, it pops up. Witch of Solitude, level 25. Bud with infinite regeneration and instant death active. And looking at her, you could see a strange wing on her back with the word death written on it. What he notices is that the wings were oddly colored. So he advances and uses Analyze, but just on the wings. That's when he discovers this was an item from the game Beyond Space. He remembers that's the same one those dozens of people abandoned in the city came from. Now it made sense. What was causing this bug? While Ryuki dodges the attacks, Aigon is recording everything and says he's going crazy. In the middle of that situation, where a single touch would mean his death, he had a smile on his face. The kid is throwing out Instagram motivational quotes and says that on the path to the pinnacle of humanity, a fire like this wouldn't stop him. Meanwhile, the witch is preparing a mega attack from behind, saying the damn intruder is going to die. Ryuki sees it and thinks it's pretty simple. If a single touch means death, then just don't let it touch you. The boss keeps charging up the orb until suddenly it explodes in the middle of the room. She seemed confident, said there was no way he could have dodged that, so this time he was dead. But of course, Ryuko already had his sword on his back going in pure grit. Actually, he was already riding on her back, saying that this wasn't her original power, and that's why she couldn't control it properly. Just by touching it, the items seemed to be kind of disappearing or interacting in a weird way. Clearly, this was a bug. The witch, desperate, tells him not to cut it, because those wings gave her freedom. She had been playing her role in this dungeon for a long time, never questioning it, just going forward. But then she found those wings on the ground, and that freed her from that magic, and she was finally able to live. Ryuki replies that if she ran away from the circumstances they were in, then they were similar in a way. He was also struggling to get out of this horrible world. The witch says that if that's the case, then they should understand each other. But our king of Instagram quotes just says that for him to reach glory, her freedom has to be destroyed. And with that, he rips off her wings, man. He even activated the sword's aura in his other hand to crush the second wing, and then she seems to have been defeated. At that same moment, all of the witch's stats go back to normal, right, and she becomes just the creature she was supposed to be in this place. She even goes back to doing the standard routine, saying that the intruder infiltrated her hideout. The poor thing is they're giving her speech, but he just stabs the sword into her chest. Yeah, this guy's not hesitating at all. And on top of that, he pulls it to the side, slicing her completely, saying that now that she's back to normal, nothing changes. He has to finish her off to keep moving forward. With that, the monster's little hand just drops to the ground, right? No mercy from the kid. In total, he received 13 standard tickets and 1 SR ticket, plus 500 experience points, a magic stone, and Suriel's heart. Ryuki was kind of disappointed. Just a little stone, a heart, and 500 points. That knight who gave 15,000 apparently was kind of abnormal. Igon tells the kid that even with luck, he's not always going to get good stuff, man. He needs to get used to a normal life. To which he replies that it's all good and SR ticket alone was more than enough to make it worth it. Besides, what matters is breaking Linful's record. At the dungeon's entrance, the guy with the big axe is furious because they failed again. The guys are all cursing each other out, blaming each other, saying it's because he died, because he did this or that. Meanwhile, in the cave, Ryuki is coming out, hearing all the commotion. Right at that moment, one of the guys is talking about cooperation. They see our kid passing by and say it's amazing. He stayed inside for 7 hours. He must have hidden a lot. But now seeing him walking away, they figure he gave up. Time for the kid to face reality. But then a little window pops up behind the fool, showing updated dungeon info. In the witch's hideout, our guy finished in 7 hours, man. 10 hours less than dear Linful. The guys are already wondering if this isn't the same guy who just came out of that place. Suddenly, the dude puts his sword next to Ryuki's neck and tells him to stay right there, wanting to know what little trick he used. It's impossible for someone to shave off 10 hours without using some kind of hack or something. Ryuki is honest, man. He just says there really was a bug and he exploited it to finish quickly. That's it. The good thing about honesty is that no one questions if he's lying. The bad thing is that now everyone is saying that Bastard should be ashamed for clearing a dungeon using stuff like that. But Ryuki just keeps walking, saying the bug's gone now. They better get to farming quick, or they'll stay weak forever. The sword guy tries to go at him, saying a cheating bastard like him has no right to be giving moral lessons. But our boy just dodges it easily. Maybe hits him with a punch and elbow, not sure. Maybe just shoves him. All I know is the fool ends up on all fours on the ground while our kid walks away. The guy stays there swearing he'll kill him someday, but the axe dude just says, "You idiot. We can't beat that bastard." The guy insists, but the boss tells him to stop being stupid and points out that if the kid managed to use the bug and pull it off, he should realize the truth. The group figures it out, right? If not only did he use the bug, but also managed to clear it, then clearly he was way above the level of that place. But they still find it kind of unbelievable. The boss starts to feel like he's seen that face somewhere before. He's remembering the video of the Chaos Knight, but he can't quite connect the dots. Then we see a few locations. White Lake, the Red Spider Forest, and the ruins of the ancient gods. All of these were famous dungeons where Linful's team held the record. There was still one more that might be good, but 3 was already enough for him to deal with for now. The robot wants to know why, and he explains that it seems another guild managed to take the record about 2 years ago. The skill girl from Aza group of the HS Guild. Guy's a little lady, huh? Up until now, is it just me, or have we not seen a proper badass waifu? True, right man? Dang, artist, what's going on, bro? Let's use that little bit of talent. Want me to lend you a compass so you can draw some circles? But Ryuki isn't worried about waifus. He's worried that damn girl came in with her record way too close to Linful's, which makes him kind of mad, since he was the one who developed the tips. Well, man, now that I notice, she has white hair, right? Could it be that damn Cynthia? And Megany? That one deserves to die, huh? Dan wretch. But then he gets up, saying enough talk, it's time to handle some dungeons. Meanwhile, inside the Demon Tower, it's Linful's group and Kasano is the one giving everyone orders. That's when a little window pops up for him. A photo of a giant octopus, maybe the boss from White Lake. There was also a photo of a spider dying, which, yeah man, that's the spider from the Red Forest. There was even a golem there, defeated, and Linful's already telling the group to handle the loot because something urgent came up. Lying on the couch, she's wondering who this kid is. The kid was deliberately focusing on breaking his records, which showed he was looking to pick a fight. Maybe the bastard thought he was hot stuff. The boss mentioned this name, Ryuki, but no matter how much he thinks, he has no idea who this person is. Man, that's rough. The guy literally doesn't have the slightest trace of our boy's face in his memory. Right then, someone opens the door calling for Linful, saying that that kid, Ryuki, is live streaming. Analyst Laguna, as always, is analyzing. And our boy posted all the records, man from the bug dungeon to Uparn, Varan, and the big golem. She can't believe he cleared all 4 dungeons and broke all the records almost simultaneously. Obviously, the result of that was nearly 2 million views in 3 days. The attention he got was expected after all the buzz with the Black Knight. There was still something she couldn't understand, like the items and his reactions. But at the same time, he was using an extremely advanced strategy that would require knowing every element of those places. Not to mention, the scariest part was that he cleared the witch's hideout, which no one had managed to do in the past 3 months. A bunch of people on the internet, right, are saying it's a bug, a cheat, or something like that. But regardless of all that, it's clear the dungeon was cleared and he's sitting there with the record. For someone who had such advanced strategies, he would need to have an extremely high-level analyst with him. What guild is backing up the kid? Poor girl, she has no idea. He's not some Jinwoo, but he's solo leveling. Our boy is still on his phone, says they must be really distracted now with all those videos. But compared to what he's about to release, that's nothing. Ryuki says this idea is really different from the others, since now he's basically going to declare himself an enemy. He sits down in the chair and the robot tells him to think it over. First, it'd be good to get stronger before doing something like that. Everyone still sees him as a noob, but Ryuki just thinks that even though Igon is right, he can't stall. Until this guy's given an answer, he can't stop. His mind got stuck 3 years ago, and the only thing left inside it was despair and hatred. Those were the reasons he kept on living. Our boy then started the live stream and introduced himself as Ryu 7017. Ryuki inside the game Labyrinth. It was a shame, but today's video wasn't about clearing a dungeon. Today, he was going to reveal the truth everyone wants to know. The guy started the exposed livestream, man. The first impressions were that he seemed a little more normal than they expected. Our boy then says that everyone seemed curious about the unknown written on his profile. And the truth is, that's exactly what he was, unknown in the literal sense. It was hard for them to believe that someone without an account managed to enter the Labyrinth game. But that's the truth. He didn't create an account and wasn't selected by any guild either. He guarantees that he's one of the poorest unknowns out there, man, without the slightest opportunity. And about how he's playing, he sums it up by saying that basically he just got lucky. And he doesn't care if they don't believe it, because that is the truth. Watching, Linful says this bastard is trying to lie, pretending to be an unknown. Then Ryuki says he became unknown because he was falsely accused. He's making this video because he's sure that bastard Linful and the Linza Guild are watching. They better remember the face they threw into the abyss. He suffered in that hell, but he managed to escape. And now they better be ready, because their turn has come. In a room surrounded by cards, a man in a hat says it looks like an enemy of Linza has appeared. Carde says the views are no joke, and V replies that apparently now the kid's going to be hunted. The man in the hat already comments that if this is one of Linful's messes, Gabriel has surely already wiped all the data. Card V says that Linful and his crew are promising, so it's worth keeping an eye on them. But it responds that to him that team is kind of pathetic. The guy in the hat, though, wants to know what they're going to do, since Linza won't be able to ignore Ryu 7017. The 2 cards, however, aren't too motivated, saying they've already got a bunch of stuff to deal with. The man says it's fine, he'll keep watching, but maybe he'll act on his own. The cards disappear, saying they already expected that and say goodbye. The man also says goodbye, saying he'll follow the path that seems more interesting. At the Linza Guild, Gabriel is giving an interview while being bombarded by reporters. Everyone wants to know about this Ryuki and what connection he has to the guild. He reveals that yes, the boy was once part of the team, but due to an internal accident, he was expelled and no longer has any connection. The reporter, however, says the kid in the video claims he was falsely accused and wants to know if that's true. The guy answers that it's a complete lie. But the reporter insists, saying there are several other suspicious rumors about how they've been acting, ranging from malicious behavior toward other players to alleged collusion with the developers of that place. They were using their influence in the game to pressure the developers into changing how dungeons were regulated, even to the point of altering how items are acquired. As the guild leader, the reporter wants to know Gabriel's opinion on all those allegations. Like a good shady politician, he says it's all lies, just attempts to tarnish the name of the Linza Guild. They already gathered new information about what Ryu 7017 was saying, and soon everything would go back to normal. While Gabriel was doing that live stream, someone was watching in a store. Our boy walks in and the person immediately says the whole world is talking about him. Ryuki responds that he doesn't care about any of that. What matters is, why does he leave this old man voice in such a healthy little girl body? To which the guy answers that that's the best part of having a fully prosthetic body. The only woman who even slightly dolls herself up in this story is, in fact, an old man with a robot body. What a mess. Ryuki then just says he's tired of it and wants to see the mods. But Suzuki shows him the same ones as always. Our boy immediately tells him to stop offering junk, especially since he already said he could find the person who delivers the good mods. Right then, Suzuki says he understands that Ryuki wants to talk to the person who creates the mods. He reaches under his kimono, pulls out a CD, and says this is what he was told to deliver if someone ever came looking. If someone managed to find him using the information in there, then they'd be given a chance to talk to him. Ryuki just thinks that for someone to have gone through all of this, they must be pretty powerful. Aigon takes a look and sees it's a visual mod. It would interfere with his visual system and retrieve all sorts of information. The only issue is that it's more advanced than the previous ones, so the risks are higher too. Our boy thinks he doesn't really care about that. What he really doesn't like is this feeling that he's being tested. So he starts taking his little backpack off and tells Suzuki he brought a little gift. Everything he had been hunting these last few days. Basically, the items from the record-breaking videos. He drops them on the ground and tells her to sell it all, that she'd be well compensated. Dang man, how rude. Just threw it on the floor like whatever, see ya. Walking through the streets of the city, he says he's been seeing the items from the dungeons popping up on YouTube, and it's actually bringing in some money. Obviously, Ivan told him to take advantage of that positive momentum to pull some gacha rolls. Man, time to gamble a bit. But he says no, there's one more person he needs to meet. That's when someone raises a hand and calls him. The dude with that K-pop haircut tells our boy it's been a while since they last saw each other. Ivan thinks some nutjob just showed up because Nome is friends with Ryuki, right? The guy is a total loner. But when the guy greets Ryuki, the robot is shocked that the bastard actually does have a friend in this world. Looking at the guy's hand, our boy remembers Yggdrasil. From the clothes and everything. It seems like they were school friends. The guy asks if they can talk for a bit. And man, our boy is clenching his own hands so tight that his veins are popping green. He says sure, he doesn't mind talking. Damn, I thought they were friends, but clearly they're not. And the guy's already walking with him, saying it's nice to see him calm and all, while he makes a weird hand sign behind his back. There are already a bunch of guys prepping Glocks behind him, and he's saying he missed his friend. What the hell, man? There are people on the rooftops and everything. Take it easy, buddy. The jerk is throwing out that fake talk, saying he missed him, barely even recognized him. But Ryuki just says it feels like there are a lot of eyes watching the two of them. Dude, I thought a fight was gonna break out, but now we're in a cafe just chilling. The guy is apologizing for everything that happened 3 years ago. Ryuki keeps it real. He just asks if the guy really thinks his apologies make any difference. Oof, brutal. Now the guy's just sitting there with that dumb look on his face, and Ryuki wants to know if he was called there just to hear apologies. The guy says no, he's got a plan to get Ryuki back into bronze rank. Now, I don't know. Does he even realize our boy is the real Ryuki? What's going on? I'm starting to get suspicious of everything. Our boy wants to know if that's even possible, and the guy starts explaining the plan. But then, flashback time. Ryuki was calling out Garcia's name, saying there was only 1 week left until his mom's surgery. Man was on the floor like trash, clutching the guy's cards, begging him to cover the costs of the surgery. Oh man, what a bastard, he kicked Ryuki, and told him not to touch him with those filthy, disgusting hands. Yikes. And then people wonder why our boy turned out all dark and brooding. Yeesh. Next scene, he's just staring at his mom's body. And a voice even says maybe it was for the best. After all, he wouldn't have been able to cover the surgery costs anyway. For someone unknown like him, keeping up the payments would have been impossible. Obviously, Ryuki's expression didn't turn out too great after that. Back in the present, Ryuki tells the bastard to stop with the performance. With a snap of his fingers, he reveals that the guy was a developer from the game Space Alien, which yet is the one that went bankrupt. Considering he's in such a miserable state now, what kind of help could he even offer? Ryuki just gets up and says goodbye, but the guy tells him to wait, warning that if he doesn't talk to him, he'll send all the information he has about our boy to Linza. He should know very well what'll happen, since he used to work there. To be honest, what can they even do, right? Our boy doesn't seem to have any family at all. At most, they might go after him, but they're gonna do that anyway. Back in the past, when our boy handed the first tutorial over to Gabriel, at that time, Linful wasn't the top dog. It was his older brother, who praised our boy, saying that for a beginner, he was incredible. From then on, he'd keep a close eye on every guy he released. Garcia, showing the card, says he must have some idea of how terrifying that man was, so he better consider the offer. Ryuki's expression changes. He turns around, and at that moment, the guy looks confident, thinking they're finally about to negotiate. But Ryuki just snatches the paper from his hand and asks when the hell he's gonna shut up. What the hell, man? Garcia's already pulling out a knife, saying that a filthy guy like him lost all sense of how to behave in this place. He lunges to attack our boy, but all he gets is a hand around his neck. Ryuki just says that the one who lost their sense of danger is him. Apparently, the fool was eager to meet death. Slams him against the wall. After all, you can't just kill someone out in the open, right, man? Then he walks off, saying it's best if he never sees his face again. Garcia quickly sends a message to the crew, warning them the target's escaping. The moment Ryuki steps out of the store, bam. 36 Glocks pointed at him. Everyone shouting for him to surrender and put his hands behind his head. But in a single second, the first guy has his Glock ripped right out of his hands, and our boy pulls a move so fast, even the artist couldn't catch it. The kid's moving so fast, he's slipping out of the frames. Come back here, kid. I can't even see you anymore. The damn witch calls out to him. She's up on the rooftop, see. Use level 3 flash step. The poor guys didn't stand a chance, and he's even impressed at how aggressive they're being. Igon then says our boy's stress levels are spiking. What's bothering him so much? He just replies it's nothing serious. At the very least, things were now clear. He knew the next steps. First, it was time to go back to the world of the ghost. The scene shifts to Gabriel, who says he's disappointed in Garcia. Seems like that's how he repays the trust he's given. The fool apologizes, but says he has some crucial information, like, for example, that Ryuki is 25 years old. Gabriel just tells him to shut up. Honestly, that info is garbage. I'm with Gabriel on this one, man. He warns him not to say a single thing that the entire Linza guild doesn't already know. Then he says the kid got something in a random box. That's how he accessed the game. He just needed one more chance to fully investigate and figure out what really happened. Gabriel says they already know about the ticket that was acquired in that area. It was auctioned off, and he already confirmed that. What he's certain of is that someone is sponsoring Ryuki, and that's the information he wants. Garcia, though, thinks it's impossible to know which lunatic would be backing a complete nobody like him. At that, Gabriel turns around and says he wasted his time talking to trash who would betray even an unknown friend for a bit of cash. Damn, he hired the guy for the job, and now he's humiliating him for taking the job. That's harsh. The psychological damage was way too much, and here he comes, pulling out that knife again. Hey man, you really need to drop that habit. Yeah, you stepped forward, it put a hand on your head, and you kissed the pavement. Too smart for your own good. Man, it was Gabriel who landed the hit. I thought it was like a security guard from behind, but the guy is just that fast. He says that apparently this bronze must be out of his mind for trying to attack a member of Jinza. Normally, he'd have to be killed, but out of mercy, he'll just let him become an unknown. Now the idiot's being dragged away, begging for forgiveness, saying he doesn't want to become an unknown. Yeah, but too late, man. He's going. That dude with no self-control totally earned that demotion. And now Gabriel's deep in thought. He remembers that bastard actually was a decent analyst, but that was it. There was no way to compare that Ryuki with Linful, who was the obvious pick. But somehow, that kid always had something special about him. It was time to find out just what the secrets of that account really were. Back in the ghost world, our boy drops into the city like thunder, now showing up fully geared in his little armor. And Igon is already telling him to roll. Time to hit the gacha. But our boy's got more important things to do. He says he wants a crowd around to see what's about to happen. The views on his videos keep climbing, and he knows it won't be long before those guys make their move, especially since those bastards are the biggest guild in the ghost world. He takes off his helmet, saying it's time to spring a trap. Right then, people start pointing, saying to check him out. Everyone seems to recognize him, right? The unknown from the video everyone's been talking about. Ryuki had 92 tickets, 5 guaranteed SRs, and 8,500 points. First things first, he starts with a 10-roll man. The items drop in front of him, full of useless stuff as always. He gets all bummed out. No SRs came. And the robot says that, unfortunately, there's no guarantee with boxes. The only thing he can guarantee is that he'll laugh in the protagonist's face. And there he is, spamming laughter across the screen while our boy's just sitting there with a mountain of trash. He's lost the will to live, wondering how he didn't get anything with a 3.6% chance. Igon tells him not to give up. No true gacha addict would stop here. That's when he grabs the SR cards and says that, actually, now the game begins. The first one gives him a Phoenix Feather SR rank, a necklace that lets you resurrect once. Considering that a bunch of the bosses in the game have those instant-death attacks, it might actually be worth it. Second box drops, he's sure this time he's getting a weapon or a sick ability. But what's inside is an SR rank toothbrush. The robot congratulates him, saying now he's officially the king of toothbrushes. But Ryuki's confused. There has to be something special about this so-called magic toothbrush. There's no way it's just normal. Igon explains that the little star next to the name means it's a special item, which means he can actually use it in the real world. He wants to know what the hell he's supposed to do with that in the real world, and the robot says, well, he can brush his teeth and destroy any cavity. Ryuki throws a punch in frustration, but the damn robot dodges. The problem now is that he's only got 3 cards left, and with each bad pull, the chances of getting something good are slipping away. So he decides to open the last 3 all at once. Usually that's when something good pops out. He's biting his lip, begging for a decent weapon. But what he pulls are 3 copies of the sort of weapon. The robot is dying of laughter while everyone watches him lying defeated on the ground. He's wrecked, doesn't understand how he spent all those tickets and still ended up with nothing. The people nearby are kind of confused, not really sure what's going on. I'm not sure if they can even see what he's doing, like the items popping out. I don't think they can. And the guy next to him is already thinking about reporting him to Linza so they can come kill the kid. Then Igon says he's got some good news for the protagonist. After pulling so many SR-ranked items, he finally unlocked the combination system. He can't reveal what other features exist in that system, but just know there are more. Our boy wants to know why the robot didn't just say that sooner, instead of laughing in his face, which is still twisted up dancing around, saying it's irresistible to laugh at a sucker like him. Then the system appears. They have both ability combination and item combination. And under item, there was also undo, which let him break items down into random box points instead of combining them. The combination itself doesn't have much mystery, right, man? You combine 2 items, and they get upgraded. He combines 2 swords, and it shows up with a little plus sign at the end. Right away, he wants to know if there's a limit to how many times he can combine something. He puts 2 already combined swords into the system, and again, it looks like it's working. Excited, he jumps in shouting, "Combine it." Man, I thought it was going to fail, but no, it really upgraded and the thing turned massive. It's the Grand Sword, now with the name IGG at the end. Apparently, now it really can be used like a pistol from far away, because before it kinda only half worked, like it was jammed or something. He's laughing like a maniac, and the robot says his vital signs are starting to get weird. Then he spends the rest of his points to upgrade his parry to level 5. And now he's got an SRIGG with a star at the end, right? That part we already knew. He can use it in real life. That's when he starts wondering what happens if he combines 2 skills that are already maxed out. The system shows that he could gain the skill Sword Saint, Heavenly Sword, or Sword God, which immediately makes him blow up at Igon, asking why even the skill combinations are completely random. To which the robot replies that it wouldn't be any fun without a little bit of luck. He should just keep going to try and pull a Transcendental Plus rank skill. Our boy wants to know what the odds are of getting one of those. The robot says an incredible 2%. Dude's out of his mind and decides to go for it. What if he gets lucky? But all he pulls is Sword Saint. It was basically max mastery and defense at level 3, with sword energy at level 1. It also granted bonus SP when leveled up, but since it's not fully maxed out, he can still evolve it more. He's about to say something to Igon when suddenly someone approaches from the side. The guy puts a sword to his neck and asks if he's Ryu 7017. Our boy thanks him, saying finally Linza sent someone. He was starting to think they were taking too long. He starts to say it's crazy to go for a PK inside the city, but the guy just slashes his throat. The footed man says he shouldn't worry about such insignificant things. The PK rule only says you can't kill anyone, but it doesn't say anything about inflicting pain. Ryuki knows this is Linza's usual strategy, especially since the sensation is way too realistic. So he asks why the guy's even wearing a mask when it's obvious he's from Linza. Man, I don't know if it's another guy, but he gets hit with another sword strike, this time in the back. And the man warns him to understand that from now on, he'll never know peace in this game. Wherever he hides, they'll follow and kill him. Ryuki turns and says it's hilarious how this whole world belongs to Linza. The guy tells him to keep laughing, because soon the only thing he'll be doing is screaming in pain. But on the next attack, Ryuki activates Flash Step and grabs the sword. He gets right up close to the guy and says 3 hits were enough for him not to be seen as the villain in this scene. The masked man then realizes the kid was holding back from the very beginning, and now he's the one getting cut. Everyone nearby can feel the guy's pain. Man, the knife's being driven straight into his back now too. Ryuki wants to know what happened to the guy who was supposed to be hunting him all over the game and making him scream in pain. Normally in this world, the more defense you have, the less pain you feel. But our boy, yeah man, he doesn't follow the rules of the game. And apparently the guy is trying to log out, but he can't. Ryuki says that's good to know. In a place where no one can die, it's the perfect setting to let someone sit there suffering. He keeps spinning his sword back and forth, saying this revenge is only just getting started. That's when Igon warns him to be careful. A bunch of hooded figures surround him from all sides. One of them, with a brooch on his shoulder, calls out to Ryuki and says he'll get straight to the point. It would be best if Ryuki left the ghost world, and even better if he stopped being a player altogether. If he agreed, they'd let this go. Ryuki, who draws his second sword, says they're being way too generous offering him such a noble favor. He stabs the guy in the back again and says that they were the ones who provoked him first. The brooch guy replies that clearly this bastard was more dangerous than he expected. Ryuki tells him to run, but the guy says that's not an option. Besides, he's curious to know what that sword is. Ryuki tells him to take off the mask and he'll explain, but the guy just answers that that's not going to happen. He says Ryuki should have used the bugs he got to live a peaceful and hidden life, but he wanted too much attention, and now he found himself in trouble. A shame, really, but his plans end here. Right at that moment, all the masked guys attack Ryuki, who's just standing there like a fool, but he dodges the first strike and takes a step back to avoid the second. The guy with the blue bangs is coming from behind, thinking Ryuki isn't half bad, but this is where it ends. Only Ryuki already activated Sword Saint and slashed the first attacker. Apparently, the guy managed to defend himself, but his whole sword cracked. He couldn't understand how someone who hadn't even reached the Demon Tower was already using Aura. A technique like that normally burned a ridiculous amount of mana, so using it like this was insane. He decides to try again, saying that weak Aura won't do anything, but Ryuki just deflects it using his sword, which has its own aura, and says they probably don't even realize what he's doing. He strikes the guy in the chest, and another one's down, or rather just incapacitated, since no one dies here. The leader, at least, is smart. He sees how quickly Ryuki blocked with aura and wonders if it's a parry, like in some other games. Ryuki just replies that they're starting to realize the more they try, the worse it'll get. To help them make up their minds, he reveals that his ability doesn't consume mana, which means right now he's the only one who won't get tired. Before the guys can even process what he just said, bam, another sword strike hits dead center on someone's head. Judging by the blood sound, that thing went in deep. Speaking of going in deep, there's a little white-haired girl. Is that you, Cynthia? You sneaky snake. You think I forgot your name. The other guy's leg is messed up, and the leader tells them to be careful. Somehow, the pain from this kid's attacks feels worse. They shift into a hide-and-leaf formation, each one drawing their class setups and all that. At that moment, Ryuki replies that if someone was pulling out Nightfall, then they're not trying to hide anymore. He knows all too well a dual sword user known as Cassius. Not as famous as Linful, but still well-known, and definitely not someone people would want to find out what he's been up to. Cassius activates a binding magic, Oliva, to paralyze the kid so they can go in for the finisher. Chains rise from the ground and wrap around Ryuki. Everyone starts prepping their best abilities, and 3 attacks come flying toward our boy. Cassius knows how parry works. If there's nothing solid for it to counter, it doesn't work properly. And judging by Ryuki's face, looks like he's right man. Glitter explosion everywhere. But when the smoke clears, someone's just standing there untouched. He's got that dumb look on his face while Aigon explains that now that the ability has evolved, it can also defend against non-physical attacks. Even so, Ryuki's swinging his sword around, saying he's kind of disappointed. Looks like he'll have to be more careful with long-range fighters. Man, before Darius could even say anything, he took a bullet straight to the chest, dropped like trash to the ground, calling for backup. Our boy says it's really sad to see their boss go down with just one little bullet. He hadn't even started having fun yet. But the guys are completely confused. How the hell does this bastard have a revolver firing in the middle of a fantasy world? Our boy is they're holding 3 massive revolvers, man. Against monsters like golems, they're not much use. But against humans, it's a different story. Especially in a world like this, where that kind of item shouldn't even exist. He warns them that everyone who came after him today is going to leave here crawling. Somewhere, someone's watching a screen, just listening to the sound of gunfire. It looks like a weirdly warped teddy bear saying things are starting to get interesting. Back in the scene, Ryuki's disappointed by how weak these guys are. Aigon explains that these guys just play based on in-game stats, right? They don't even try to dodge anything, and that's why they can't handle a gun. Plus, he was keeping them pinned in place so they just stay there writhing in pain. Ryuki walks up with a smug look, saying that as high-ranking members of Linza, these guys probably have some kind of mental defense. Suddenly, he senses something and dives to the side. An attack slams into the ground and blows the whole area apart. Whoa, man, not only that, now a rain of attacks is coming down on the poor guy. He recognizes it as meteor rain, definitely the skill of a certain someone, and he wants to know if it's the person he's thinking of. Right then, a transfer stone drops next to him, and in a split second, Ryuki vanishes. The people in the city are all confused, while Cassius wonders if those guys are going to get personal.